Hi everybody, welcome to art class at the kitchen table. Today we are going to make a drawing of a city line and its reflection in the river. We are going to need paper. You can use any kind of paper that you have at home. I have drawing paper here. It's a little thicker than normal paper, but you can even use computer paper. You will need a pencil, one paintbrush, some kind of water dish, a ruler. If you don't have a ruler, you can even use another piece of paper as a straight line or a book as a straight line. If you have a Sharpie at home, that would be great also, or some form of permanent marker, and a box of washable markers. So those are the supplies that we'll be using today. Please bear with me. It's the first time I've ever videoed myself with teaching an art class, but I think we're going to have some fun. It'll give us something to do while we are all sheltering at home. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, and I'm going to put the computer down to my paper now so that you can see, and you can do this at home as well, is we are going to use our ruler. So what you're going to do is have your paper like a door right now, not a window. I always tell my kids up and down is like a door. You will put your ruler out about 3/4 of the way across your page and press your pencil up against it and draw a nice straight line. That is going to be the line we use, and I'll turn it this way. That's going to be the line we use to draw our city on top of, and the reflection will be on the small part of the paper in the water. Okay, so think sky and think water down here. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to draw some simple building shapes. Some simple building shapes are rectangles, triangles, squares, some nice straight edge shapes. You can use your ruler at home if you want. I'm not going to use mine today, but I'm going to draw some rectangular buildings. There's no right or wrong for how many buildings you draw. There's no right or wrong. I'll show you this. So far, this is what I have, so you can see. There's no right or wrong on what your buildings look like. You can think of some of the buildings that are downtown that you may have seen. Maybe we'll do one with a little bit of a pointy top. You can even layer some of your buildings as well. Put some lines behind it for some lower buildings. We can add in some windows. It'll look like these buildings are in a night sky, so maybe we'll have some lights on, and some of these windows we'll leave them white. You'll see what I'm talking about when we start to color some of them in. We can make some interesting buildings with some different sloped roofs, different rooftops, maybe a little chimney. You can just have some straight buildings with a few lights turned on. Just a cityscape. I'll show you what mine looks like so far. So that's what mine looks like so far. I'm just going to add one last building over here. And it's just going to be a small building right there. Then I'll come back in and I'll think of some details to add. Some other structural details. So maybe this building right here might have something tall and skinny, some sort of antenna of types. This building might have a little rooftop shelter on it. Just think of some things that maybe you might see downtown. Okay, The next thing that we're going to do is use our Sharpie marker actually. And our Sharpie marker, a lot of you who have taken my art classes before know that we use Sharpies a lot because you can paint over them and they don't smear. We're going to trace over all of the lines that we drew in pencil with our Sharpie. Any size Sharpie will do. Today I brought out my big guy because we're actually going to be coloring a little bit with our Sharpie. Most of you probably already know that Sharpies will stain, so you're not going to want to get this on whatever surface you're working on. You should probably put down a newspaper or keep your paper in the pad if it came in a pad. You definitely don't want to touch it with your fingers or get it on your clothes or anything like that. And once you have that line drawn for all of your buildings and traced, we'll draw our horizon line right there. It's going to separate our city from the river below. The next thing that you're going to do is you'll begin coloring in your buildings, but you're going to want to leave your windows white. So you'll color in your buildings. Take your time. You're going to want your edges to be nice and straight. If you don't have a Sharpie at home, you could use crayon for this. A black crayon would work. Or a black colored pencil as well would work. Just to give you some options. So you can see how mine is starting to look, just like that. Come over and we'll finish the rest. And then we'll start working on our sky. And we are going to work on an evening sky. Think kind of like a sunset. And one thing that I don't want you to ever have to worry about is making a mistake, because in art we can always fix our mistakes. I went out of the line a little bit. I'll just make my edge a little bit bigger. That's all, to cover that up. this building right here looks a little plain. We'll give this building some windows too. Some lights on inside. That's the nice thing about this project is you can kind of add things as you're going. Okay, so here's what I have done so far. And now we're going to make the reflection in the water actually next. And these aren't going to be exact reflections actually, they're just going to be the type that you see in a river where maybe they're a little wavy. You're not going to see the exact shapes of the building because the current's moving, but you'll just see a little bit of the reflection. So I'll show you how I do that. So what I like to do is come down and I just am making little zigzag lines in my water. And I kind of separate them into the different buildings. So this one's kind of long and skinny. This one starts wider. This over here, there's some steps. So we'll bring that in. And we'll go up here and give it a little squiggle. You guys can see what I'm talking about. Put a little squiggle at the top. This building is along the sides, about the same size the whole way down. It's not quite as tall as the ones next to it. This building has an interesting shape at the top. It has a triangle roof. We'll give it that little triangle roof with our squiggles. This little guy is a short little rectangle. This is a wide rectangle. Can leave a little space for its window. Give this one a little skinny rectangle. This one has an interesting roof again. And the roof goes up to one side with a little bit of a chimney. Here's another rectangle. It's not quite as big. And another short little rectangle here. Okay, so that part is done. And it looks something like this. Now here's the fun part. Everybody at home, if you have your markers, to bear with me here, we're going to take some of our markers out. So here are my washable markers. And washable markers are great because you can actually use them a little bit like watercolor paint. So if you don't have watercolor paint at home, these are a great alternative. You just need a paintbrush and some water. If you do have watercolor paint at home, you can paint right over your Sharpie marker as well with that. Okay, so either way, use whatever you have on hand. Both will work. I'm going to use the markers to show you how those work, since most people probably already know how to use their watercolor paints. We will be using the markers today. So we're going to take out a red and an orange right now for our sky. We'll work on the sky first. And just fill your water cup up so that you have that ready. I just want to take out your yellow too. We'll start with the yellow actually. We're going to start with our yellow. All right, let me bend this down so you can see. So we're going to start with the yellow, and in between, I'm just making some little lines. I'm not fully coloring anything because we're going to use our paintbrush to blend everything together. It's kind of a fun way to work with blending. Right now we're going to use our warm colors. So think warm colors for the sky. Think summer sky or spring sky. Bring some orange. And you can color right over your yellow a little bit if you want to. There's no right or wrong how we do this part. And we'll put some red in here to finish that sky off. And then this is the fun part. I always think you can use your paintbrush, any size. You can use any size paintbrush. Don't feel like you have the wrong kind of paintbrush. There's no such thing for this project. We're not doing any great detail with this. We are just simply blending. And it's very fun and very easy. We just have to dip our paintbrush in some water. And we start going right over top. So I'm doing my red first. And I'm taking it straight down into my orange. And you can go right over your Sharpie. See how your Sharpie won't blend? Once that Sharpie's on your paper, it is going to stay there. When you get into your yellow, you're going to want to dip your paintbrush in to try and keep your yellow pretty clear. You're going to want to get some of the color into your windows too. If you want, you can. It's fine. If you don't want to, don't worry about it. But sometimes windows reflect the sun or the sky, so that's fine if you want to put some color in there. And bring some of your yellow up there. Dip your paintbrush in and start down on this yellow and bring it on up. Bring it up over here. And now you have a beautiful evening sky. Looks something like this probably. Then you'll come down to the water, and for your water we're going to use some of the cool colors that you have in your marker box. So for your water, I'm going to take out my blue, my green, and my purple actually. Okay. And we will actually start with green as it gets close to the city line. Okay, so we'll start with a thin layer of green. Okay, so I'm just gonna run my marker through all of the reflection lines of my buildings. Also, the nice thing about using a Sharpie is that the black will not get on the tip of your marker, so you don't have to worry about ruining any markers. So there's some green. Then I'm gonna get some blue in here. I'd say about any age could try this. With some help, even maybe 4 and 5-year-olds could. Kindergartners definitely could work on this. We're just using simple shapes and simple lines. What they might need a lot of help with maybe is just that first step with using the ruler. And come back in and add the purple. If you want to get fancy, you can add a little blue in with your purple. And then we'll go back to using our paintbrush and the water again and blending it all in together. Now, if you are using thinner paper like computer paper, you will need to lay it out to dry. Once the water has dried, if you want to get it to go flat again, because the water will kind of stretch your paper a little bit, if you want it to go flat again, just stack a few books on top of it once the water's dried, and it'll make it nice and flat again. And you can blend it as much or as little as you like. And in the end, you have created a beautiful scene from a city. I hope you guys like this project. There's going to be more to come. I'm experimenting with some fun things, and we'll have another video soon. Have a great time. Bye.